All right, what's going on, world? This is Raul with Live Loud. So I'm coming at you guys again with another video. As you guys know, I've been putting these videos together, and the whole intention behind this is because we constantly know what people do, but we don't know the people behind it. We don't know what's really going on, what it takes, what people are up to, and how they make that happen. I've been able to just get a collection of amazing people. My brother Rafael is going to be joining us in a second right here, and just sharing kind of what's our story, what stuff have we been up to. And this whole intention, Live Loud, is all about celebrating people and what stuff they're up to. So we bring it with that. So Rafael, thanks so much for joining me, man.
Yo, Raul, thank you so much for having me, man. Live loud, yes. Loving it.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background. I met Rafael very recently, but he's quickly become a brother of mine. Just great heart. Just give us a little bit more about who you are, man.
So I'm an actor, writer, motivational speaker. My training is in acting and business as well. That's what I got my degree in. My passion, my everything really is for the performing arts. So I've been doing a lot of that. I started my theater company, Construct Theater Company, in 2009, right after the recession.
Good time.
Remember that?
Yeah.
And the premise to that was to just act, direct, write about our own experiences. Because, you know, being a Afro-Latino, like, there aren't too many Broadway shows or even parts that me and my friends found that we could fit into. And they weren't also telling our stories. So what's the best way to go around that? We write our own stories. So that's how we came up with Construct. And yeah, it's my baby for the longest time. In being the artistic director of Construct, I started learning how it is to communicate with people. So we kept going with Construct for about 10 years, more or less. Ups and downs like anything else. Learned so much, still my baby. And the last few things that I have been doing was, instead of doing ensemble work, I've shifted over to doing more writing. And the last thing we did was my play, which is called Photos. And Photos has to do with four men, a father and three sons, a Dominican father, old school, that they're all photographers. And the father is very analog, old school, and everything has to be done by hand and with passion. And the sons are more like digital, like, let's get this done quicker, faster, better, like, this is what it is. And they kind of bump heads in the whole process. But really what blows it up is that they found out that the oldest son was molested by the mother. I mean, not the mother, the aunt, excuse me,
Okay.
the father's sister. And it really divided up this family of men. And the whole thing about it is that, you know, them being macho men, like we are a lot in our culture, or we're taught to be, right? They didn't have access to vulnerability. But what do you do in a household full of men? Like, you're gonna have to access that. And then, unfortunately, it took this tragedy to have it happen. Having these men find their way back into a relationship with one another, where they can have these conversations and talk about topics that most people don't want to talk about.
Right.
It's so freeing, right? And that was my last off-Broadway play that we did with Construct.
Gotcha. So what got you into all of this? So I know acting and being kind of in that spotlight or being in the front stage to be able to go and convey your artistry, but you also talk about the teaching aspect of it, to reaching out to people. So where did that stuff come from?
It came from my own pain and my own limitations. Um, I always loved being on stage for what I thought was the right reason, but it was for escape, right? I really wanted to hide. And I know that sounds contradictory, you know, but literally hiding in plain sight.
Mhm.
And when I'm on stage, what I felt before was, no one can see me. What they can see is this character in front of me.
Yeah.
Right. So it was a mask that I used very well to, like, stop me from, or stop other people from really seeing into me. And in further investigation, the reason that that came up was because I've been dealing with being molested when I was a child for a while. I started remembering when the first memory came up when I was 15 or 16. And the only person that I was able to tell back then was my older brother. And it was one of those things that wasn't really addressed, and I swept it under the rug. And I thought it was dealt with, and I just like buried it deep.
Right.
Then it started showing up a lot more by the age of 23 to like 27. You know, it was just so very hard for me to have a relationship. And also I became what do the people call that they go to the doctors all the time for any or for no reason at all.
It's just like paranoid type of thing, or
Definitely paranoid. But I was just like, I swore that I was gonna catch a STD. Even
okay,
though I was being careful, I would be in there like on a regular basis. If something was just out of place, a hair was out of place, I was like, I gotta go. Just I'm gonna die. Like this is like I gotta get treated. I don't know what's gonna happen. And finally, my doctor sat down and he was like, "Listen, you're not engaging in bad behavioral sexual practices. You're being safe. What is this all about?" And I was like, "I just want to be safe
hmm
and careful, right?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's probably a little bit more. Let me ask you a question. Did you ever experience any type of sexual trauma when you were younger?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I'm good. Like, I've dealt with it. I'm good." He puts a pamphlet in my hand. I start shaking and I'm like, I don't need this. And I left the office and I left him. Like, I totally like closed that door.
hmm
Um, I started falling into what I felt was like seasonal depression without
right,
even noticing. I would operate well. Like I would go to work and I was still social and active, but I would go home and I would fall into this slumber, this place where I'd eat, I'd sleep a lot, and I wasn't motivated to do anything at all. Right. And I just thought it was me being tired or just whatever. Eat, gym, work, and that was it.
hmm
My creativity suffered a lot, and I was single a lot. And I just kept doubting myself, like, like, wow, I try to be such a good person. Like, why is it that, I have no one here in my bed with
yeah,
me? And by that, it's not just a sexual aspect,
yeah,
is the vulnerability, the connection that I
intimacy,
was really
yeah,
longing for,
for
the
sure.
intimacy. That's really what I was longing for. And I couldn't nail it. And I'm like, yo, I'm in really good shape. I don't think I'm that bad looking. So like, is it my character? Like, what is it? And it wasn't until somebody introduced me to a program called Momentum Education here in New York City that it's transformational training. And, I've always been progressive in let me get mine, let me continue to grow up here. And I went there and I was given an opportunity to speak my truth and a truth that I hadn't spoken to anyone. And I spoke about my molestation for the first time. I just like blurted it out. And you you would have thought that like a building collapsed because that's how I felt. It was like what came out as a blur was like so heavy and pregnant with so much weight
Right.
that it really did move the whole room. And from that point on, it really started to shift my whole life because up until then, I just thought that it was just something that it wasn't worth even speaking about for so many reasons, but it's the thing that was holding me down in such a way so much and was providing me with misery because I was like in my head trying to self-analyze myself. And I'm like, well, you know what? Maybe I'm gay and maybe I'm just saying, I'm just not being with it. Maybe I should just fucking try being with guys. How about that? And maybe if that's the case, I'll fucking come out. That's it. I speak French, excuse me. But that wasn't the case
Right.
because I tried and it just can't say it created more problems, but it was just, it kind of perplexed me even more because I'm like, okay, so if it's not women and it's not men, what is it? Here, me psychoanalyzing myself. And the answer was vulnerability and intimacy. I didn't have a problem with sex. What I had a problem was letting people in. emotionally, like over here, being open. Um, Even I started noticing that when the people that I was dating, because they would only last like about 3 months before it got to the point where they were like, "I love you." If you wanted me to get rid of you, all you had to say was, "I love you," or give me like the googly eye, where
Yeah.
you're, "Oh, you're so," I'm like, "No, this ain't it." And I would always come up with some kind of shitty excuse to break that person's
Yeah. It'd be a
heart.
sabotage.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I just didn't know, like we operate in general, like we operate the best way we know how with the tools that are available. So after going into momentum, then I started the healing process, and I started going into therapy. And at that point, yeah, at that point in the program, there was this woman that just like caught my eye, and we were just like, it was like kismet. It just happened, and we did the program together, and she later became my wife. We were married for a little bit. Through that whole process with her, I was able to allow for that, because from the beginning, because we were in that process, sex was out of the table. So we eliminated the conversation of sex, and what we had was to evolve a relationship out of pure love, pure intimacy, without having it misconstrued and really entangled with the aspect of sex. Because remember, I didn't have a problem with that. It was about the
Right.
intimacy. Up until that point, I had never spoken about my past experience that had closed me so much.
Yeah.
And she provided the space for me to walk into that. And it was alongside the healing that I was doing with the psychology, right? So it really opened up my world,
Yeah.
because I couldn't handle it,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, Rafael, first of all, thank you so much for diving right in with that, man. It takes a lot of courage and openness and vulnerability, and even and just confidence to be able to share those things that are so that, in my experience, can be very silencing. If you think about this quarantine or what's going on right now, people are stuck at home, right? And people can say that they're upset or they're bothered, but they're not. It's not this suffering for the majority, I would assume. It's not this suffering that people are going through. It's nothing that bad. And because of it, there's nothing really to be said. And so often I would speak for as a man or as men, or what I've experienced from other men who share this, is that we experience these kind of traumatic pivoting moments in our lives that's silencing. Like, we're strong enough that it won't take us down. We're strong enough that we think we got it, we can handle it, and we carry it. And we could even pride ourselves that we could take on this burden and just move forward without paying attention to all of the buildup and all the ways that it shows up in our relationships, in our career, in our self-esteem, and what we're creating. And we bulldoze through it often. We just go and carry it. So when people ask you how you doing, it's like, I'm fine, because I am fine, right? But we don't often give ourselves that permission to do what you just did. So I really honor you for being able to share that, man. That's huge. So let me ask you, man. So how do you interact with that now, with those silencing thoughts or those demons that kind of creep up and the sabotage? I don't think we often fully, completely get rid of that. We just know how to manage it, maintain it, and how to relate to it in an empowering way, right? So how is it that you interact with that stuff while you're out there and creating, which we'll get into what you're creating soon, but how do you do that?
Yeah, I've had the privilege to get to know who they are, like those voices and where they come from, right? Like I can name them. So I hear them, even though they sound like me, I know that they are not part of me, right? And in so doing, I speak over myself. I know those thoughts, I know those feelings, I know what my triggers may be, right? Because triggers change throughout your life. Something that wasn't active now suddenly is, and recognizing that it does trigger you makes all the difference. But I speak over myself. If doubt creeps in, okay, doubt, let's be with it. Like, what are
Yes.
we being doubtful about? And
Yes.
then I start looking at evidence to like really override it. Because if you look at if you think of thoughts or like these sentiments or these voices that come into your mind, they come from a place of like a virus. Like if you think of a virus in a computer program, right? How do you get it out? You either completely eradicate it or you continue to override it, right? So I know for sure that because of my experiences, there are some things that I can snap out like this, but there are some things that are ingrained in me. Some voices that I know I'm going to have throughout my life. Doesn't mean I get to listen to them or give them any power. I get to really continue to override them until that voice is diminished like this much and it doesn't have the gravity that it did before when I was 23 to 27, right?
Yeah, so what you do is you listen to that, you hear it, you acknowledge it, and then you choose how you choose to interpret or how you want to interact with it. I think that's so powerful, man, because something that we learned in the coaching world is we are not our thoughts. Now we think we're our thoughts, but we're not our thoughts, because a thought pops in, we identify it with ourselves with it because it comes from our mind, right? It comes from, but where does that root come from? It comes from something connected to the past. It comes from a trauma. It comes from evidence that we concluded to be universally true and permanent, right? So I think that is so powerful. That's such a powerful message to send out, that when we have those conversations in our mind, we're not right or wrong about any of it. It's just an experience that we're having. Like, we all have moments of insecurity. That doesn't mean we have to be insecure. We could just have that moment and know, oh, this is just something that's occurring for me right now. Now, what do I want to do with this information? Right. And I think that's really right on what you said, man.
And I think something that's really powerful also is the acknowledgement part of it. Because if you acknowledge it, you're courageous enough to stand up to it by looking at it, by facing it. If you don't, it continues to grow. And that's how it gains power, because it keeps you in fear.
Yep.
Once you obliterate the fear by just facing it, it's like facing a bully. Like, how do you get rid of a bully? You face him. He's always going to be in your face, or she's always going to be in your face, until you actually have the strength or the courage to be like, you know what? Nah, that's not it. And even if they come back the next day, you've now diminished their power over you by that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. To not necessarily just accept that conversation as it pops in, right? So there's so many people that say, I can't help it, this is who I am, right? That's who they choose to be. It could be something so disempowering and crippling for them, but they accept it with conviction. And I think what you're saying is that courage is to say, no, this is who I choose to be. Now let's start creating the evidence on the contrary, right? If I'm insecure, okay, great. That's the experience that I'm having. So how am I going to start creating evidence that today I'm confident? What courageous or confident step am I going to take today?
Absolutely. And if there's no past evidence, it's a great opportunity for you to create that evidence.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. So this last week, man, I've been really had the privilege of being part of your quarantine cafe, the group call that you've been having. And it's been awesome to just be in a room, digitally in a room with other people, just sharing some insights. So I know that's kind of where you come from. So tell me more about what you've been doing and what you continue to do.
Yeah, man. So, all right. So truth be told, when Corona decided to hit, it just took away my whole schedule, man. Like I'm in nightlife, and I do entertainment jobs, and the venues were closed. Everything was canceled. I mean, I basically have no work from now to June, and Lord knows how long thereafter, right? So I also had some events. I was doing the Evolving Men's Summit, which was going to take place in May. It's going to be an event where I had speakers like yourself come out to deliver messages to men that are empowering, everything from learning what toxic masculinity really is, the identification of it, to, on the other side of the spectrum, understanding what jobs would be available in the workforce tomorrow due to automation, right? And it was going to be a mixer, like fashion show. It's going to be like an event to empower men so that we can be better and lay a stronger foundation for our women to build up, right? Mm-hmm. That got out of the way. It was canceled. And I'm like, okay, so everything I thought I was going to do in my trajectory out the window. So what do I do now? So I was already creating Abe, which is always be evolving, which is now, it's my YouTube platform where I'm going to be taking motivational speakers and just dropping positive information on it. And I was like, all right, so I'm not going to be able to film my speakers in front of me. So I'm going to have to do it in a digital way. And then I started thinking about a way that we can do this on a regular basis where it includes the whole community and not just listening to a speaker. Because as like yourself, like you've grown to be a great friend and like, I want to feature him, but I also want other people to experience him in conversation.
Mhm.
So I came up with the idea of Quarantine Cafe, and Quarantine Cafe is a virtual motivational meetup spot where people come into the Zoom call and I open up with the subject matter, and the subject matter always evolves, and it is absolutely brilliant to hear people not be scripted or prescripted, right? Just to like pour out their own personal experiences and do light coaching or offerings, right? And when I look at the room, um, 15 people, out of the 15 people, you have psychologists, doctors, plumbers, entertainers, dog walkers, like everybody from all walks of life, and they're all contributing into this beautiful conversation, right? So I'm like, yeah, this is definitely my calling right now. And now it's like, okay, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m., come through, come join. You can just listen or you can just not. Because I mean, listen, I hate garbage radio talk. I can't stand it because it's like, it dumbs you down, right? So if people might be wanting to listen to just jokes in the morning, here's an opportunity for those of us who don't necessarily want to hear jokes or foul flavored humor. Here's an opportunity for you to be in a conversation that's going to be uplifting, conversation that is going to challenge you,
For sure.
and conversation that you yourself can be a part of by contributing to, right?
And let me tell you, people, it does. It's been awesome to jump on these conversations and just to share. We all find something unanimous that unites us. There's something that like, okay, I struggle or I relate to this in this certain way, and it's been such a cool place to be able to talk real talk. Just go and just get real with a group of people, man. That's really fantastic. So you are constantly creating stuff, from this Quarantine Cafe to the summits to God knows what, man. I know you're going to be constantly evolving. So why don't you drop your handle or a place that people can follow you to stay tuned so that they can jump into whatever you're creating at the moment?
Absolutely. If you go on YouTube, just look for Always Be Evolving, and you'll see that have like 2 or 3 videos. We're working on videos now to like drop them. We're in the editing process and doing the virtual filming. So we'll be doing that a lot more throughout the week. Another place you can go to is Instagram, and you can again always be evolving, or you can just go to mine directly, which is Moreno NYC, like Moreno NYC as in New York City. You can find me there, or if not, on Facebook, Rafael Moreno. And yeah, man, it's that's what's in front of me right now, and also the book that I'm working on. So this is like one of my biggest challenges, but it's also part of my healing process, which is to write a book based on my experience so that other men could read it and start their process of healing. Because here's what it is, Raul. Like, out of 10 men, there are about at least 3 that have had traumatic experiences as children, right? At least. And these are the numbers that of people who actually can admit to it. But there are so many men that don't speak about it because there's so much stigma around it. There's the guilt and the shame of having it happen, but then there's that stigma of, well, you're a man. Even if you were 5 years old, like you could have said something, you could have done something.
Yeah.
So all these things stay bottled up, and then they manifest in a few degrees of abuse. They could be light abusers, like myself, which I went into depression and I was just being in a state of confusion and just not allowing to tap into intimacy,
Hmm.
having that block, to on the other extreme side, which is where you become abusive, abusive to yourself, abusive to your family and loved ones, or like detrimentally abusive, where you actually reenact what was done to you to others,
Hmm.
right? So I really want to open up that conversation and make it in a way that it's easily digestible. I mean, I don't have a psychology degree, but I don't want to get too technical.
Yeah.
But the purpose of the book really is to inspire men to speak about it. That's like the first thing. Like once you speak about it, that's your first step in starting the process of healing. That's going to be the first step. And I really want the book to really speak to that.
That sounds fantastic, man. We will definitely be staying tuned. When you're ready for that book release party and stuff, man, you already got someone that's in your corner to help you elevate that game, man. Brother, thank you so much for taking the time and going to speaking with us about your journey, what that means. And aside from that, man, I told you before, but thank you again for taking all of what has been and converted it into what could be. You've been really creating and holding space either in front of the screen or behind the scenes, man. So we're really grateful to have you all in all. And thank you for being on here and saying it loud, man.
Yo, thank you for providing this space. Like I honor you and I honor everything that you're doing. You're like one of my rocks, bro. So like just know that whether you are here or you're in Zimbabwe or India, it is like I am clear that you always have an impact anywhere you go. So thank you and I honor you, bro.
Thank you, man. We'll be connecting probably later on today at some point, man. I'll be talking to you, brother. Thanks a lot. Make sure you guys stay tuned, tune in. If you guys know about people that have some powerful stories, I know Rafael has a couple of people that he wants to go and celebrate. Please reach out to me. Make sure you follow Rafael. Stay tuned to all the great stuff he's creating. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Much love. Peace.